this is a time for choosing. This is a time where all of us have to bring ourselves to some truths and realities about what this election means, not just for the country, but for our communities in particular. And this is, I think, specifically and very important for the African-American community, and to help us sort of understand exactly how the Black community is looking at this election and what it may mean for them as they have been casting their votes and will continue to cast their votes right through November 3rd. I'm very happy and pleased to welcome Terrance Woodbury, who is the partner of HIT Strategies. And his team have been putting together an incredible analysis of the Black vote, where it is, and they're going to be releasing their findings on Black voters that include information about not just how we make up the majority of voters in places like Mississippi and Georgia, and almost a majority in South Carolina, but how this plays itself out relative to battleground states and the strategy that, quite honestly, the president has employed in trying to lure Black men into voting for him. So Terrance, welcome. And I turn the floor to you to share your insights from the hard and strategic work you guys have been doing over at HIT Strategies.
Thank you so much, Michael. I mean, we're in the final stretch, folks, and it's getting exciting. I'm very, very honored to have been able to go through the journey of this cycle with so many folks on this call, to be able to connect Black voters to their power with BEA, with BlackPAC, with NAACP. I mean, we have some mighty, mighty powerful leaders on the front line of this. And because of their work, we've been able to really deep dive into the Black community to understand their priorities, their attitudes, their behavior in this cycle in a way that stretches beyond the limitations of most research, that stretches beyond Black voters as a single column, or even less than that as a POC column of a crosstab, but to really go into the nuance of Black voters, the diversity of Black voters. And that's really what we've been able to uncover here with so many of our research partners. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you all so much. I'm Terrance Woodbury. I'm a partner at HIT Strategies, along with my partner Roshni Narangadi. We focus on a few important audiences here, on women and millennials and minorities, what we consider the ascending electorate, where all of the change, all of the rapid urgency and change is happening amongst these three audiences. And I can tell you right now, there's nowhere where the urgency is as great and where the need is as urgent as the Black community. And we see that every day, folks, in early vote. We see it in Georgia and in Texas and in Virginia. I like to joke around a little bit and say, you know, Donald Trump may have been more successful had he just disenfranchised Black voters privately, the way Republicans normally do. But once he got on that podium and started announcing to Black voters that their votes weren't going to be counted, that the post office was dismantling machines, I can tell you guys, Black voters are showing up in a way, and I think that that we are really, really about to determine the outcome of this election. And I just want to talk you through a few trends and research that we've been seeing here. So Black voters make up 13% of the national electorate, up from 11.5 in just 2000. And I can tell you now, like, Black voters are not, the fact that Black voters' share of the electorate is increasing is less of a result of Black voters' share of the population increasing, and more of a result of Black voters' share of the electorate, share of the people who actually turn out to cast their votes. And that, I believe, is going to increase even more this year. I just heard a very, very fascinating statistic out of Georgia. Black voters in Georgia, Black seniors, Black voters over the age of 65 in Georgia have already cast more votes than they did in 2016. Black seniors in Georgia have already cast more votes than they did in the entire cycle in 2016. I can tell you right now, Black seniors are my favorite voters in the electorate because we know how they're going to vote. and we know that they're going to vote. And so I think that tells us something about what to expect from Georgia. And I believe that this is the year that we could actually flip Georgia. 29 to 40% of Black voters between the ages of 24 and 39, Black voters between the ages of 24 and 39 make up, 29 to 40% of Democratic voters in the 9 battleground states are Black voters. And this is important because we have some interesting races here in 3 of the battlegrounds. I like to talk about the reverse migration of Black voters. In South Carolina, in Georgia, and Mississippi, Black voters are almost the majority of the Democratic electorate. And in all 3 of these states, we have an opportunity to send 3 Black men to the Senate. This is a story that is not just a story of South Carolina and Georgia and Mississippi. This is a story that matters to Black men in Detroit. This is a story that matters to Black men in Philadelphia. You know, every day I get to sit in focus groups with Black men who feel like they are not represented in either party. They're not represented in the political system. And so to be able to talk about the Black men that we have the opportunity to send to the US Senate, this is a story that will mobilize Black voters, not just in South Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi. This is a story that we have the opportunity to mobilize Black voters across the country. And the example that I often give is, you know, AOC does not just represent a progressive left of New York. She represents the progressive left of Texas, and the progressive left of Arizona, and the progressive left of Colorado. There are young people all over the country that believe that AOC is the only person that represents them in Congress. And that is exactly what these 3 Black men have the opportunity to do for Black voters all across the country. And what's so important about that is that in South Carolina and Georgia and Mississippi, Black voters are almost the majority of all Democratic votes. In Georgia and look, in Mississippi, 71% of all Democratic votes come from Black people. In Georgia, 58% of all Democratic votes come from Black voters. And in South Carolina, 43% of all Democratic votes come from Black voters. So these are the kind of numbers that have the opportunity to empower and mobilize Black voters. And Black voters really do believe that they have the power to make a difference. This is a question we've been asking because there's a direct correlation between turnout and vote likelihood and the power that you perceive your vote to have to make a difference. And so the more power that you perceive your vote to have, the more likely you are to vote, which is why with BEA and BlackPAC and NAACP, our goal has not been just to increase likelihood to turn out. Our goal has been to increase the perception of power that Black people believe that they have to make a difference in their communities. And we see here that 56% of Black voters feel extremely powerful to make a difference in their community. 55% of Black men and even 48% of younger voters, Black voters under the age of 50. And so this has to be our charge, and our final argument is not just to increase the likelihood that they tell people like me, pollsters, that they are likely to turn out, but that we increase the power that they perceive in their vote, because we're going to need that power beyond Election Day. We're going to need that power on November 4th. We have to re-engage them and keep them engaged for what is likely to be a very uncertain and unprecedented election. And finally, Black voters have a few very important priorities. You know, pollsters often ask issue priorities, and most pollsters don't include racism as a part of their issue priorities. But one thing we wanted to do with BEA was go beyond just economic priorities, just jobs or wages, but to really understand what are the economic priorities of Black voters that will mobilize them. And we gave them a list and allowed them to pick at least 3 options out of that list. And for Black voters, the economic priorities are affordable healthcare, investing in programs that reduce and limit poverty, and the elimination of racial and ethnic employment discrimination. Overwhelmingly, Black voters are facing this election with anxiety. This is not just a COVID election for Black voters. And I want to be clear, the top 2 issues for Black voters often rotate as often as we ask this question, and we ask it at least 10 times every month. It rotates between racism and COVID-19. We know that COVID is affecting Black voters in a disproportionate way that is not affecting the rest of the country. But we also know that racism is a large umbrella for a lot of issues, for economic issues, for environmental justice, for the disproportionate impacts of COVID and other health impacts. And so this is an opportunity for us to lean into this election, but we have to lean in to race. As the president has declared a culture war, we have to lean in and give Black voters a place to land in this culture war. This poll was conducted between September 16th and September 26th. It included a sample of 1,500 Black voters across North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Georgia, what I believe are going to be 3 of the most hotly contested battleground states of this cycle. And we also included a couple of other statistics here from exit polls, Pew Research, the New York Times, and I'm sure we will have more time to talk through a lot of this data before this conversation is over.
Terrance, thank you very much, man. It's incredible insight into how Black voters are beginning to synthesize this election and what issues are moving them, and the fact that it's incumbent on candidates, whether they're running for local office or national office, to begin to focus on these types of issues in a significant way. Appreciate your taking the time to share that information. And this is going to be released and on the street, as they say, tomorrow, or it's out there now, or where can people find it?
This has been released to the media today. It's going live tomorrow. Please access this information, utilize this information. There's a lot of content here that will tell us exactly how to mobilize Black voters and how do we make our closing argument in the last 7 days of this election.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Terrance. Quick little ad for you guys.